Miss Southgate! Southgate, you there?
I really didn't think it would come to this.
Miss Southgate!
David and I talked about getting him into a care home. But Dad just didn't want to leave the house he'd lived in for the past 50 years. Too many memories to leave behind, he said. I know David was putting pressure on him to let us have the house. We have 2 kids, see, and only a tiny flat. Dad was stubborn. I should have said something. I mean, David's got a bit of a temper on him, especially when he's been drinking. And now I could lose them both. My dad and my husband.
Cases like this, where an elderly person dies by the hands of an abuser, are very rare, but sadly sometimes happen. But could this death have been avoided? Were there signs or symptoms of abuse that Norman's carers could have spotted? Were the policies and procedures laid down to protect Norman from abuse ignored or overlooked? In this video, we look at the signs and symptoms of abuse and how you, as a care worker, can safeguard the vulnerable adults in your care from being abused. Action on elder abuse defines abuse as a single or a repeated act, omission, or lack of appropriate action occurring within any relationship where there is an expectation of trust, which causes harm or distress to an older person. In this video, we look at the role of the carer in maintaining a culture which safeguards the individual, the legislation and policy that exists to safeguard the vulnerable person, the concept and definition of abuse, the signs and symptoms of abuse, ways in which carers and organisations are required to respond to the abuse of vulnerable people. The government defines the vulnerable adult as someone aged 18 years and over who is receiving accommodation and nursing or personal care in a care home, receiving personal care in their own home under arrangements made by a domiciliary care agency, or placed with an adult placement carer by a registered adult placement service.
There you go, love.
Thanks, love. Oh, it's been a difficult day today. Thank God the kids have finally gone to sleep.
I got those brochures like I said I would.
Not now, David. I'm really tired.
Oh, do take a look. He'll have his own room and bathroom. They've got lovely grounds and lots of facilities. It's like living in a hotel.
They're very nice. But you know how he feels about staying in his own home. I mean, he's worked hard all his life and he just doesn't want to leave. And we've got so many happy memories there. Me growing up, Mum and her coffee mornings, Dad and his barbecues. You know, he just doesn't want to leave his own home. And I don't think we can force him if he doesn't want to.
But it's not fair. Him in a big 4-bedroom house and us, you, me and the kids in this tiny flat. Now we've moved him downstairs, he hardly uses any of the house.
Oh, we're all right, we can manage.
I suppose.
Look, he needs his medicine. Would you be able to drop it round after work?
That's something else they do in this home. Give them their medicine. Okay, hon.
Norman suffers from chronic obstructive airways disease, which causes him breathing and mobility difficulties. So he requires care and support to live a relatively independent life. By law, Norman has the right to choose where and how he lives his life. No one has the right to demand he moves out of his house and into a home, not even his family. Vulnerable adults are dependent on others for their care needs and may be at risk from those who might abuse the power and influence they have as a care provider. It is the legal and moral responsibility of every care worker to respect the rights of service users and to safeguard them from physical or mental harm at all times. Failure to do so may constitute abuse, and in some cases seen as a criminal offence. The government defines abuse as a violation of an individual's human and civil rights by any other person or persons. This may consist of single or repeated acts. It is important that individuals who are receiving care are allowed to make choices and to take control of their lives as much as possible. This enables the service user to maintain some degree of independence. Service users have the right to privacy and dignity, choice and control, protection from harm and abuse. As a care worker, it is your responsibility to safeguard the individual by ensuring these rights are maintained.
Good morning, Norman. It's only me, Isabel. Oh, good for you, Norman. Good for you, good for you. Norman, it sounds as if you've been having a bit of a night there.
I can't complain, love. Can't complain.
You know what? Let's just pop this on for a wee minute, okay? There you go. Norman, have you been using your puffer?
Yeah, well, no. I ran out of my puffer on Tuesday. That son-in-law of mine said he was going to bring some over, but he couldn't be bothered.
Do you want me to see if I can get it for you?
No, Jean's going to bring some round this afternoon.
All right then. I'll away and make a cup of tea.
Okay.
Norman is dependent upon his nebulizer or puffer to improve his breathing. He has a repeat prescription for this, which his son-in-law has not yet collected. The carer was concerned about Norman's breathing, so she gave him some oxygen before getting him out of bed. However, she didn't follow up on the missed prescription, as Norman said his daughter was bringing it over later. Vulnerable adults are protected against abuse in the same way as any other individual, through both the criminal and civil courts. If a person commits theft, assault, or any other criminal act against a vulnerable adult, then they are dealt with through a court of law. In addition, there are also a number of pieces of legislation and guidance that provide a framework relating to the specific prevention of abuse or exploitation of vulnerable adults. For example, No Secrets is guidance previously issued under Section 7 of the Local Authority Social Services Act, the key measures of which include the granting of social services the lead responsibility for protecting vulnerable adults, the granting of social services a coordinating role in developing local policies and procedures for protecting vulnerable adults, a requirement for all relevant agencies to work collaboratively and develop inter-agency policies and procedures. It is a requirement for protection of vulnerable adults, POVA, register to be kept of all those people considered unsuitable to work with vulnerable adults. Care organisations have a duty to contribute to this register by reporting any proven cases of abuse and by referring to the register whenever recruiting new staff. In addition, all new members of staff have a legal requirement to provide their employers with a police check via the Criminal Records Bureau service. The Mental Capacity Act provides a statutory framework to empower and protect vulnerable people who are not able to make their own decisions. It makes it clear who can take decisions, in which situations, and how they should go about this. It enables people to plan ahead for a time when they may lose capacity. The rights of individual service users are also protected by the Human Rights Act, which includes the right to freedom from torture and inhuman or degrading treatment, liberty and security of person, respect for private and family life, home and correspondence, peaceful enjoyment of possessions and protection of property. As a care worker, you need to be aware of how this legislation influences the way in which you work.
Thanks, Mum. I wanted to talk to you about Oliver's birthday party next month. Thought we could have it round here. Invite some of his friends.
That'd be nice.
Do it in the garden.
Yeah, we could get that old barbecue of mine going.
Perfect. The kids love it round here. There's so much space for them to run around. Not like our tiny flat.
I know where this is leading, David, and you can stop right there.
Stop what, old man?
You want me out, don't you? This is my house. My daughter was born here, my wife died here, and I want to spend the rest of the time I have left in a place that I love.
And that just goes to prove what a selfish, stubborn old man you are. Have you any idea how hard it is for me, Jean and the kids in that tiny place?
If you didn't waste so much money on booze, you might be able to afford something bigger.
You're not even going to look at these, are you?
I think it's about time you left. Why don't you go out this evening with your pissed up friends? I know you don't want to be with me.
No one talks to me like that. If you're not prepared to help us, I will not give you the satisfaction of seeing your grandkids having fun. You can forget your party. We're going to McDonald's.
David's attempt to involve Norman in family life, on the face of it, seemed open and generous, but because of the history between the two, Norman perceived the request as his son-in-law wanting to get another foot in his house. David's actions of shouting at and shaking Norman constitute abuse. Perpetrators of abuse can be any people who are in a position of trust with a vulnerable adult and may include partners, children or other relatives, carers, friends or neighbours, professional or volunteer care workers. Care workers should notice when service users are at risk from or experiencing neglect or abuse and should respond appropriately to ensure that individual service users are protected. The factors that are known to contribute to abuse and exploitation include prolonged stress among the caregivers or care workers, feelings of resentment and hostility towards the service user, deeply held prejudices and stereotypes towards particular social groups, financial dependency on the service user by a family member, unrestricted access to service users' finances by a family member, poor levels of practical competence in caring for the older person, inadequate monitoring or supervision of the carer by a professional care worker. Action on elder abuse one of the UK's leading voluntary organisations working in the adult protection field, describes 5 different types of abuse, which are financial abuse, neglect, physical abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse. Physical abuse can take many forms, including hitting, slapping, burning, pushing or restraining. Rough or careless handling may also constitute physical harm, as can giving too much medication or the wrong type of medication. The common signs of physical abuse are unexplained injuries, including bruises, fractures and burns, delays in reporting injuries, loss of hair in clumps, vague or inappropriate explanations, multiple injuries or a history of past injuries, especially falls. Neglect occurs where a service user is not provided with adequate care or attention and suffers harm or distress as a result. The common signs of neglect are malnutrition or dehydration, unexplained weight loss, poor hygiene, inappropriate dress, pressure sores, poor skin condition, poor resistance to infection. Psychological abuse includes cruelty or verbal insults, including shouting, swearing, frightening, blaming, ignoring, bullying or humiliating a person, even the spreading of rumours or malicious gossip. The common signs of psychological abuse are fearfulness, mood changes, low self-esteem, changes in sleep and appetite, withdrawal and self-isolation. Financial abuse is the obtaining of money, valuable possessions or property through theft, cheating or deception. The common signs of financial abuse are unexplained loss of money or inability to pay bills, sudden withdrawal of large amounts of money, disappearance of valuable possessions, loss of pension or building society books. Sexual abuse is any sexual activity where the service user has not or cannot consent to it prior to it happening. The common signs of sexual abuse are unexplained difficulty in walking, bleeding or bruised genitals, reluctance to be alone with a particular person, sudden changes in behaviour. It should be remembered that this is not a comprehensive list and other signs and symptoms might be present. Also, the presence of one or more of these signs does not mean that there is absolute proof of abuse. Rather, it indicates that abuse might be occurring. If individuals who you care for present any of the above symptoms, you must report this to your supervisor or manager.
Only me, Dad. You okay?
Hi, darling. Just making a cup of tea.
Hi, Dad. How are you doing today? Nice to... Oh, what's happened to you? Let me have a
Nothing,
look.
darling, nothing.
Did you have another fall?
Well, it's been coughing. I got dizzy and...
I'm phoning the doctor.
No, don't do that. There's no need. A nice cup of tea and I'll be as right as rain.
Hello? Yes, this is Janet Hawthorne. Yeah, Norman Southgate's daughter. My dad's had a fall again. I'm wondering if the doctor could come out. No, I can't bring him. He can hardly walk 20 steps and we have to take 2 buses. Yes, I know the doctor's busy, but I'm really worried about him. This is the 3rd time it's happened this month. She says that I should get an ambulance if I'm worried about you.
No need, I keep telling you.
Yes, he needs a doctor, not an ambulance. OK, forget it. Come on, Dad, make a nice cup of tea. I've got some biscuits.
Like many victims of abuse, Norman says that the injuries he sustained from David were due to an accidental fall. Jean, when spotting the bruises, spoke to the receptionist at Dr. Thompson's surgery, saying that her father had fallen and hurt himself 3 times that month. Service providers should adopt a 4-stage approach to the problem of abuse, as follows: prevention, identification, action, planning. Prevention. The best way of dealing with abuse is to prevent it from happening. Service providers should have policies and procedures in place and should create a culture of awareness among care workers, including an understanding that abuse will not be tolerated. Identification. Should it occur, it is vital that abuse and exploitation is identified and reported. Care workers should be trained to be aware of all forms of potential abuse and exploitation, and should know exactly what to do and who to go to if they have any suspicions or concerns. This subject is discussed more deeply in the Raising Concerns and Whistleblowing DVD and resources produced by BVS Training. Action. Any report or suggestion of abuse, no matter how minor, should be taken seriously, immediately investigated, and appropriate action taken. These investigations should be fair and transparent and, if care workers are involved, conducted within the context of employment law. In most cases, social services or the police should be contacted, even if it is only for advice. The consent or cooperation of the victim to an investigation is a key element in any action taken, and trust is often a key element in obtaining that consent. The victims of abuse often feel intimidated to keep silent or fear the repercussions of speaking out. They may also feel confused or unworthy and do not know who to trust. Planning. It is vital that care organisations learn from occurrences of abuse and that this informs the way that they operate in the future, for example, through staff training, liaison with social services and participation in local adult protection discussions.
Morning, Mr. Southgate. Isabel's not feeling too well today, so the agency have sent me in. Mr. Southgate? Mr. Southgate? Mr. Southgate? Hello, Mr. Southgate. Okay, I'm just going to put this on you, okay? So just relax. Okay. Oh dear. Oh dear. There you go, Mr. Southgate. Okay, just breathe into that nicely. Okay, so I'm just going to turn this on. There you go, so just breathe into there. Okay, just take it easy, take it easy. Okay, just breathe, Mr. Southgate. Okay. Okay, we're going to clean this all out for you, okay? You okay? Just keep on breathing. Mr. Southgate, do you mind if I call your daughter?
The home care package agreed for Norman is a shared responsibility between social services and Norman's family. In the morning, social services contract a domiciliary care agency to provide Norman with a carer to help get him up out of bed. Lunchtime is shared between social services and his family. In the evening, it is the family's responsibility to assist Norman. The new care worker has found Norman in a distressed state, and it is clear from his condition that the family had not visited him the previous evening. Although the replacement care worker contacts the daughter to update her on Norman's condition, he fails to record this information in Norman's care plan, or to pass the information on to Isabel, Norman's key worker at the agency. The new care worker also fails to report Norman's condition to his duty supervisor.
Look, David, you're the one with the car and you work just around the corner. Every day I go and help Dad in the daytime, and if you only came home from work in time, you'd be able to look after the kids and I could drive over. But no, every night you're in the pub.
You should be in a home.
I mean, what do you expect me to do? Take the kids on the bus in their pyjamas?
All right, I'm going. Supper, then bed, and no messing about. Where's your puffer, old man? Let's get you upstairs and get you some oxygen. Norman? Norman? Norman?
People who are dependent on others for their care needs are vulnerable to abuse and exploitation. Abuse often arises as a result of an imbalance of power between the service user and caregiver. Vulnerable people may suffer from a number of different types of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. These might include physical, sexual, financial, or psychological. Carers should be aware of the possible signs and symptoms of abuse. Carers should follow the policies and procedures laid down by the agency when responding to any concerns about abuse, neglect, or exploitation. Any concerns regarding suspected or alleged abuse or neglect must be reported to the key worker and duty manager immediately. The consent of the service user is a vital prerequisite to any investigation of alleged abuse or exploitation. Therefore, care workers must ensure that allegations of abuse or exploitation are handled sensitively and in a confidential manner. Fortunately, cases like Norman's do not go as far as this, but the tensions that led up to Norman's death are sadly far too common. The sequence of events that led up to Norman's demise, if noted and reported, would have formed a picture of a potentially abusive situation that could have been avoided. Jean and David Hawthorne were having a difficult time raising 2 children and caring for an elderly and frail father.
But it's not fair. Him in a big 4-bedroom house and us, you, me and the kids in this tiny flat.
David's financial difficulties to support his family and his drinking problem, compared with the perceived life of luxury of his father-in-law, had created feelings of resentment and hostility.
No one talks to me like that. If you're not prepared to help us, I will not give you the satisfaction of seeing your grandkids having fun.
David also had the added responsibility of helping his wife care for her father when he had no practical knowledge how to do this.
He should be in a home.
And the clues were there for the people that cared for Norman to see. Norman's repeat prescription not delivered. Norman being left in his chair overnight. The constant bruising being blamed on falls. The way Norman communicated about his son-in-law. On their own, each of these clues did not add up to much, but pieced together were indicative that Norman was at risk. So, as a care worker, no matter how small or insignificant you think an event might be, it could be that vital piece of information that completes the picture and safeguards a vulnerable adult from abuse.